Hey, you over there. Yeah, I see you. You're thinking about starting your own podcast, aren't you? Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain because I have some experience here. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. Totally free to record, edit, and distribute your podcast. It doesn't get any better than that. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey, coming up on this episode of Ayana Explains It All, I'll deep dive into what's ailing black men. Do you know? They don't even know. I've got some explaining to do. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Hey, it's Ayana, and welcome to episode 12 of Ayana Explains It All. And this week, I'll be deep diving into what is ailing black men, because I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I feel like people really need to understand what's going on, including black men. But I need to get to some housekeeping matters first. I want to say that this podcast is a labor of love for me, which means that it looks quite like someone is laboring lovingly over it. I play with the sound every week. I have two different microphones and I have this Focusrite, I don't know what you call it, a synthesizer or a mic box thingy. And so I've been using the Yeti microphone, but I decided this week that I would switch to the original microphone that I had and see what the sound would be like. And so far, so good. I don't know. I'll probably be switching back and forth. Whatever sounds the best. And if it doesn't sound good, someone will certainly make sure that I know it doesn't sound good. I'm learning this as I go along, and I'm reading so much, and I'm studying this software that I'm using. I'm using the Descript editing software. And it lets me know if I'm talking too loudly or talking too low. And it lets me add music tracks and all kinds of goodies. And then I can upload this to the Anchor FM app and send my podcast out into the universe, as it were. So that's where I wanted to start. I wanted to make sure you guys knew what I was working with. Also, I record this from my dining room. I don't have a studio. I don't have padding on the walls, although some might say that I could be in a room with padding on the walls without a microphone, and I would be just fine. But so I'm doing this in this room, and so again, the sound is not going to be what you're used to hearing in some podcasts. You might even hear some of the sounds of the outdoors, some of the sounds around my house. I try to keep those out as much as possible. That's why I record this so late, so that everyone in the house is asleep. You don't have to hear any footsteps above me. You don't have to hear any slamming doors or any appliances going. So there's that. Also, last episode 11, I talked about Ohio's wrongful conviction problem. And one issue that I was kind of wrestling with discussing, because I did not want the podcast to be 2 hours long, 3 hours long. And so I kind of just mentioned it briefly, was that erroneous convictions sometimes come from hours and hours and hours and hours of a suspect being interrogated by police, being lied to by police, And police are allowed to lie to suspects about evidence, evidence gathering, about statements from co-conspirators. They are allowed to lead a suspect on, lie to them, really. They're allowed to lie to them. It's constitutional. In order to get information from them, in order to get a confession from them, because that's all they care about is getting a confession. They hate it when suspects do not talk, when they invoke their right to an attorney, when they invoke their right to remain silent. They don't like it. There are people who will sit in interrogation rooms with police for hours and just let the police grill them and talk to them, and because they don't understand what their rights are, or because they think that they can help the police have said, yeah, you can help us, we can help you. If you help us, we'll help you. The police don't want to help you. They're not going to help you. Don't help them. Don't make their job easier. Half of the time, they're going to trick you into saying something that will be used against you in court, that will be used against you when the charges are brought in the grand jury room. Just don't do it. Don't talk to the police. Especially do not do it without a lawyer being present. There's the Melissa Lucio case is still in limbo. Well, she's scheduled for execution. She has a few days before her execution date. And one of the things I remember reading was she was interrogated by police for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And she finally broke down and admitted to killing her daughter. But her daughter was not murdered. Her daughter's death was an accident. But she admitted to killing her daughter, and that's what they used as the basis for arresting her. Well, she said she did it, so there you go. We zipped it up. It's fine. Let's get this case out of here. Some states are looking at moving away from allowing police to lie to suspects. So currently there are two or three. Ohio is not one of them in any event. I believe Illinois is one. I can't remember the name of the other one, but they're only looking at it. You know, last year they explored removing it from police practices altogether, and I believe there are 2 states out of the 3 who have removed it altogether. But again, it's slow reform, because law enforcement in states, they want the police to be able to have wide latitude to do their job. If you tell them that there are certain things they can't say, certain things they can't do, then it makes their job harder, and it makes catching criminals harder. So you want them to be able to have as many tools in their arsenal as possible. It's not enough that they could just shoot someone in the head if they wanted to. That's not enough. No, we want them to be able to murder and lie to people and get people to confess to crimes that they didn't commit, and get people to lie about seeing crimes that they didn't see and seeing a person commit a crime that they didn't see. They want the police to have all of this power, but they don't know how to rein it in when they start to see it going, when they start to see it's out of control. So this is what police law enforcement reform is about. This is what criminal procedure reform is about. It's not just about police brutality. It's about so much more. It's about preventing erroneous convictions, which seem to be prevalent in our society, in our modern society, and prevent people from getting jammed up. You know, I mean, I mentioned this last week, that it's really, if you don't know how hard it is, you should read some of the stories of exonerated people and how hard it was to get them out of prison once they were charged, convicted, or they pled guilty. It's extremely difficult. And there are so many more people sitting in jails and prisons, on death row, in solitary, enduring the harshness of prison life, who have not committed the crimes that they're accused of, the crimes that they have been found guilty of, even the crimes that they pled guilty to. Yeah, people plead guilty to committing crimes that they did not commit because they just want to get out of it. The police and the DA have told them, oh, you just do this and get it over with. Or maybe they had a public defender who told them, yeah, just do this and get it over with. Just do your time, get out, get your record expunged, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't listen to them. Somebody's telling you to plead guilty to a crime you did not commit. Do not do that. Don't do it. I'm not saying this as a lawyer. I'm saying this as a person with common sense. I mean, if you watch that documentary on Netflix called How to Make a Murderer, and it shows you for how long, how many hours that the younger accused, the young guy who was accused with, was it his cousin or his uncle? He was accused of murder. They interrogated that young man for hours and hours and hours and hours. And they misled him and they lied to him. And finally, he admitted to doing something that he probably did not do. I mean, he was convicted. I don't know what's going on with the case right now, but he did not participate in it. He probably didn't. He probably had nothing to do with it, but he admitted to it. He admitted to it after hours and hours of being interrogated. I mean, if you were subjected to what police subject suspects to, you would probably admit to, I don't know, assassinating Abraham Lincoln. You just would. That's how good they are at that particular part of their job. They do hours of training on this, days of training, weeks, years of training on how to interrogate suspects. They're better at it than you think. So it is to your advantage to not talk to them at all whatsoever. That's what they're good at. They're good at interrogation. If you're arrested, invoke your right to remain silent. Do not talk to anyone, including the people who are in the jail with you. Yeah, they put plants. They'll plant someone, or they'll just have anybody who's in the jail say, hey, did this guy talk to you while you were in there? Did he say anything about the case? And that person will sing and sell you down the river. So keep your mouth closed. Talk only to your attorney. Even on phone calls, they record the phone calls. Speak only in person to your attorney. And if you talk on the phone to anyone, do not talk about your case. Talk about the weather. Talk about food. Talk about, I don't know if you're coloring in prison. No, I don't want to be insulting. No. But so I just wanted to mention that and tell you guys that even when I wrap up these podcast episodes, I'm still reading and learning and studying about the subjects that I talk about. Like the episode I did on empathy, a couple of weeks after that, I saw an article on something called dark empathy. Now, I read that and that just blew my mind, because it turns out that narcissists can possess a certain type of empathy called dark empathy, but it's really sinister and it's very evil and it's very manipulative. And my goodness, I could do an entire episode just on that. So I just wanted you guys to know that even when I'm finished with this, when I wrap these things up, I'm still looking and learning and bringing you guys information, things you might not know, things you might want to know, expounding on topics. And these stories just, they do not end. So there's that. So let's get into tonight's topic is, what is ailing black men? Now, I don't know what made me come up with this topic, but I feel that it's very timely, and here's why. In the past, I would say 2 years or so, I have been observing, because I've had a lot more time on my hands thanks to the pandemic. I've been observing the social media posts of my black male friends, not black man friends. I didn't want to say black male. And on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook, I'm just seeing what people are talking about. And they're not talking about things I wish they would talk about, things that I know are important to them. But they're talking about, nonsensical things. Things that, they're joking, they're talking about sports, they're talking about women. I mean, men talk about women so much, and it doesn't bring them any closer to understanding us. It goes from talking about us to bashing us, to berating us, to belittling us. And what they really need to do is focus on themselves. Like how people tell women in relationships, girl, you just need to focus on yourself. Well, men, you need to focus on yourself. When I look at the different social medias, I know that all social medias are not built the same. Facebook is where people go to be mean to others. Yes. Facebook is hell. Instagram is also hell, but it's a different kind of hell. It's where people go to lie about their life. Look at my life, how wonderful my life is. Vacations, cars, boyfriends, girlfriends, clothes, shoes. Look at my pretty face. It's not my pretty face, it's my airbrushed face. And that's fine. That's what you want to talk about. That's how you want to present yourself. Fine, great, wonderful. Twitter is not a hell. Twitter is hell. Twitter is one of the the darkest. I would say I've spent a little bit of time on Reddit. I've spent some time on TikTok, obviously. Follow Ayana Explains It All on TikTok. Hey. But Twitter is literally hell. People are nice in one breath, and they're accusatory and indicting and nasty and mean in another breath. People are fighting, people are turning on each other, people are building little fiefdoms, people are being completely nasty and gross and disgusting, and there's hookups, there's wars, there's race wars, culture wars, gender wars, political wars. It's all happening on Twitter. There are some lighthearted moments. I mean, I find a lot of things funny, a lot of things to laugh at on Twitter. I mean, I get some of my funniest material, some of my funniest like memes and GIFs from Twitter. Really, it's wonderful. Sometimes. Most of the time it's hell. But recently, the highly prized comedic actor Tashina Arnold, famous for her role as Pamela on the timely classic situation comedy Martin. She took to Twitter to ask the following question. What can we, as Black women, because she's a Black woman, what can we, as Black women in America, do to stop aiding in the emasculation of Black men? Why do we have to always be responsible for everything that affects Black men? It's bad enough that Black men blame us for the things that are wrong with them. We weren't good mothers. We weren't good girlfriends. We weren't good wives. We're not good co-workers. We're not good bosses. And here's all the reasons why. It's enough. That right there is enough. But now we have to be responsible for stemming the emasculation of Black men in society. I'm here to tell you, the emasculation of Black men is a myth. It is a myth. It is not real. It does not exist. I do not care what you say, what you think about it. It is not real. It is all in your head. It is not happening. And if you think that it is, then you need to rethink that, because it is not real. It is not real. It is a myth. It is mythological. Now, I love Black men, okay? I love them. Not even love them to death. I love Black men. I love all men. But Black men, especially dark-skinned Black men, woo, they are my darling dearests. I raised a Black man. And before you say it, yes, a woman can raise a boy into a man. All it takes is teaching him how to be a decent human being. And I have done exactly that. Wherever my son goes, people remark all the time what a wonderful young man he is. A Black woman did that. It is possible You all don't give us credit for it. You all tell us that we can't do it. You tell each other that a woman can't do it. But let me tell you that we can do it. We can do anything, just like you can do anything. Just like you can do anything. Women can do anything. When people talk about teaching a boy to be a man, what they're talking about is macho shit. Yeah. Machismo. Or shaving, how to shave your beard, how to shave your pits. Sports, sexual intercourse, womanizing, smooth talking, being tough, acting rough, acting tough, being aggressive. And whomst better to show a boy how to be a foul-mouthed, brooding force than another man. Certainly there are things only a man can show a boy, like how to use his penis. I can't show my son how to use his penis. Yeah, so I take him to the doctor. The doctor shows him. The doctor talked to him about it. I talk to my son about sex, about love, about affection, about being tender with, your partner, about being considerate, about being kind. But the one thing that he needs is for someone to show him how that thing works. And no, it's not me. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with it because a man can't show me how to work my vagina. And I wouldn't even trust a man, except I do have a doctor friend, who is a gynecologist, Dr. Jeff. Hey, shout out to Dr. Jeff. So in a clinical sense, fine. But in a personal sense, This is not to say that the presence of a man in a boy's life isn't important. It is important. It's very important. It's important to have both parents. Whether it's a man and a woman, two men, two women, it's important to have everyone who was involved in making the child present in the child's life to help raise them, to help rear them, to help teach them things. The parents are the first teachers, not just the mom. Both parents, you are the first teachers. You teach the child how to speak, how to say words, how to reference things. You teach the children who to trust. You teach them affection. You teach them how to love, how to be caring, how to be responsible. And yeah, it's better to have two people there showing the kid how to do it than one. Because having one person doing the work of two people is exhausting, let me tell you. I'm tired every day, tired every week, tired every day. But I do it anyway. And again, it is important for a well-rounded person to have in their life and know both of their parents, if they're able to. I tell you what, though, the most famous man in the world was born after his father died. But he had uncles and a grandfather to help raise him. But he did not know his father. And there was another famous man who came before him who had no father, according to the Islamic tradition. He was born without the benefit of a father, without the benefit of sexual intercourse. He did not have a father, but again, he had uncles, his mother's family. He had the men in his mother's family who were present with her, who were her guardians to help her. So this is not to dismiss the need for a parent, but I'm telling you, when a man isn't there, when a woman isn't there, when one parent isn't there, people come together. The village comes together. The village will come together, inshallah, and make sure that child is raised properly and make sure that they don't become antisocial personalities. Make sure that they are productive citizens. And why am I telling you this? Because in growing up and raising boys into men, there are certain things that, despite all of the good and all of the good that we teach them, all of the good that they know, all of the things that they learn in school, there are some things that they still fail to learn, and that is how to take care of themselves physically and mentally. And this is especially true for Black boys. This is especially true for Black men. Now, emasculate means to deprive a man of his role or identity. And what is the role or identity of Black men in American society? Who has denied Black men, deprived them of their role or identity? What is the role of a Black man in American society? I'll ask it a different way. Why do Black men exist? Do you even know why you're here on Earth and not floating around in another universe? And now we can take this conversation one of two ways. We can go the biblical, Quranic way. Man is here because God put us here and God made us into tribes and we're of different colors, but race is not mentioned in the Quran. There's no race. There's just believers, non-believers. There's people of the book. There's et cetera, et cetera. Race is something that we created. Race is something that human beings created. So why are you here in America? How did you get here? Why are Black men in America? Now, there's a conversation that can be had in the context of emasculation. American slavery absolutely emasculated the Black man in America. Undoubtedly. It removed from the Black man any ability to be a man, to be masculine, to be a provider, to be a father, to be a protector, to be a leader. It forced Black men to be in these subservient roles where they were beaten, raped, worked in the worst conditions, underfed, sold, auctioned off, put in chains, had broken bones, feet broken, hands broken, had their babies sold off. They weren't allowed to wed. They weren't allowed to read, even though they could read in their own language. And some of them were Muslim and some of them spoke Arabic. Even though they could read and write in their own language, they were not allowed to read and write in English. And yes, before the Black man was brought to the Americas, he was all of those things that he couldn't be in the Americas, in his home in Africa, in West Africa, more specifically. Men worked, they provided for their families, they traveled, they traded, they married, they produced children, they were educated, they practiced medicine, they were scientists, they were traders. They provided for their villages. They were kings and princes and tribal leaders. American slavery removed from the Black man the ability to do any of these things for a time. And even for the time, the antebellum period and the Jim Crow period. Black men continue to be emasculated. And the effects of that have been passed down through generational trauma into the Black men of today. However, much of what is happening to Black American men today, what is oppressing Black men besides white American racism, what is affecting Black men, what is killing Black men overwhelmingly is their poor health. Their poor health. This is what's ailing Black men. Poor physical health. Black men are eating, drugging, drinking, failing to visit the doctor, failing to follow doctor instructions to death. Black men are smoking themselves to death. They are physically unwell and dying from preventable illnesses. This is the biggest problem facing Black men today. That right there is the biggest problem facing Black men today. But when you go on social media, you will rarely, at least for me, you will rarely see Black men discussing exams, physical exams, medications they take, doctors they see, routine well checks, mental health treatment they might need. They're not discussing their health. They're not talking about their feelings. First of all, we know that. Unless it has to do with somebody threw a ball somewhere or some sports stat or some, girl in a dress or something, or a car, or drugs or alcohol or music or dancing. The next dance routine on TikTok or fraternities or, something of the sort. You're not seeing Black men talking about the number one killer of Black men. And that is a physical ailment, is the number one killer of Black men. And Black men are not talking about, they are not having the conversations about what is endangering them the most, what is killing them the most, what is the number one killer of Black men. Black men are not talking about their health, though. Women talk about our health all the time. We talk about our health all the time. Have you ever been able to get a man to talk about the last time he had a prostate exam? Men are always talking about what is owed to them. Black men are talking about what is owed to them. What about what you owe to yourself? Men tend to act fearless and reckless as if they're invincible. But when they get to a certain age, also decide that they'd rather not live forever, but die before they turn 70, because for some, the trappings of life, the hearth, the home, the bills, the work, the relationships, they are overbearing and produce little in return. And they just want to get this shit over with, really. And since this is a facts and figures driving podcast, and I've drilled into your head that Black men are dying from something that is preventable, let's get into the facts and figures. Black men are not dying because they're emasculated. No, that is not number one on the list. God forbid anyone die because they can't be what they think they should be and they don't even know what they should be. But according to the CDC, non-Hispanic Black males of all ages, this is all ages combined, the number one killer of non-Hispanic Black males in the United States is diseases of the heart. That's right, heart disease. And there's so many different heart diseases. There's ischemic, there's chronic heart disease, congestive heart failure, ischemic heart disease, there's cardiomyopathy, there's heart valve disease. So many different heart diseases. So many different diseases of the heart. And it's killing Black men. Killing. Black men are dying in their 40s. In their 40s from heart attacks. Heart attacks. The number two killer of all Black men, non-Hispanic in the United States, malignant neoplasms. That's cancer. So 24% goes to heart diseases. 19.5% goes to malignant neoplasms. And then way down on the list, number 3 is accidents, unintentional injuries. These are the things that happen when you're in your home and for some reason you're trying to change a light bulb by standing on a wobbly chair and you fall and you bust your head, only you don't just bust your head, you bust your brain and you have a brain bleed and you die. Or a car accident. Or you're walking down the street and someone hits you with their car. You're walking in the street. Someone hits you with their car. Or you fall down the stairs. That's number 3, accidents. You know, more people die from accidents in their home than you would ever believe. And for some reason I do this, but I will occasionally go and look up on the medical examiners for my county. I'll go and look up the medical examiners' records of deaths for a particular month. And there are so many people, so many of them elderly, who die from accidents in their home, from unintentional injuries, subdural hematomas, or they fall and break their hip and they go into the hospital and they do not leave alive. There was, this happened last year. I believe it was last year. The former Miss USA, Leanza Cornett, for some reason I remember this, but she was doing something in her kitchen and she fell and hit her head on the kitchen island and she died. Young woman had an accident in her home and she died. But yeah, Black men, number 3, accidents, 8.3%. Number 4, cerebrovascular diseases, brain diseases, 4.9%. The 4th leading cause of death in Black men, non-Hispanic Black American men, is cerebrovascular diseases. So we got heart disease, cancer, accidents, cerebrovascular diseases. Number 5, homicide. Assault, it's 4.8%. Now, you can't prevent, or maybe you can, but homicide is one of those unpredictable things. You be minding your business, and in the United States, because everyone has a gun and guns are everywhere, you get shot. Somebody says, "Hey, I'm standing my ground." You get into a spat with someone, they pull out a gun and shoot you. You get stopped by the police and for some reason they're on their nut, off their nut rather, and they shoot you in the head. Or you get into a fight with someone at a bar or whatever, at an amusement park, and they punch you really bad. They punch you hard enough where you fall back and hit your head and you die. It's ridiculous, wildly unpredictable. That's 4.8%. Still not as much as heart disease, still not as much as cancer, still not as much as accidents, still not as much as brain diseases. But coming in at number 6 is diabetes mellitus, 4.3%. This is type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Now, it can cause erectile dysfunction. So you're not just dealing with diabetes, it can cause mental changes as well. It's one of those things that once, your glucose is out of whack and your insulin production, your body's not making insulin, or your blood sugar is too high or too low, you could die. But then there are all these other things that go along with it. Or you have to check your blood glucose level several times a day. They're coming up with all these new things that monitor your blood glucose level, and where you don't have to prick your finger. Before, you would have to prick your finger and you have to bleed a little bit onto the little strip, and then, the strip would test your blood. and you have to watch what you eat. You can't have so much sugar, so much fat, so much salt. And it could also lead to kidney disease. It could lead to having some of your extremities, like your legs or your feet, even amputated. It'll start with your feet, then it'll go move up to your legs. Number 7, after diabetes mellitus, is chronic lower respiratory diseases at 3.2%. This is your lung diseases or pneumonia, influenza, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lung cancer, bronchitis, pneumonia, influenza. Tuberculosis, COPD, which includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis, as well as asthma, pulmonary hypertension, and occupational lung diseases like, what's that one? Mesothelioma, the one that we hear about in the commercials from asbestos. What's interesting is that pneumonia has a vaccine. Yes, you could prevent yourself from getting pneumonia. Pneumonia kills people. Pneumonia kills people. There is a vaccine to prevent a disease that can kill you. I'm just going to put that right there because there are a lot of you who are against vaccines. A lot of you who are against vaccines because you think you can't die from any one of these illnesses. You think you can't die from the flu? You think you can't die from pneumonia? You think you can't die from COPD, so you keep smoking? You think you can't die from emphysema, so you keep smoking? You think you can't die from asthma, so you don't take your asthma medication? You think you can't die from bronchitis? Anything that gets into your lungs, the thing that helps you breathe, anything that gets in there can kill you. Anything. They are not to be messed with. Not to be messed with. And if there's a vaccine that can prevent you from dying from one of those diseases, take it. These are the tools that God gave man the knowledge to make to help you survive. So why not help yourself? And I guess that's the theme of this particular episode of my podcast is, why are you not helping yourselves? Why are you not helping yourselves to live longer and better and healthier? You are not going to live forever. You are not going to live well for the time that you are on earth if you do not take care of yourselves. Number 8 on the list of the leading causes of death in Black American men, non-Hispanic, is nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis. 2.6%. That's kidney diseases. Number 9. Ooh, here's a fun one. An easy one for Black men to manage, but for some reason, again, they don't want to. All you got to do is take a pill and watch your diet. Essential hypertension and hypertensive renal disease, 1.7%. We know what hypertension is, high blood pressure. Well, did you know that it could lead to kidney disease? Just like diabetes. Number 10, also at 1.7%, septicemia, aka septic shock, aka bacteria in the blood. My father died from 2 things on this list. and other male family members of mine currently suffer from things on this list. Many of the men in both my parents' families died from things. When they died from things on this list. But another thing that was a common killer in many families, not on the list, I guess you could say that would be lumped into the all other causes, is the effects of substance abuse and alcoholism. Yeah, people drink themselves to death. People will drink up until the day they die from the disease they developed because they were drinking too much. Kidney disease, liver disease. Alcohol erodes your esophagus. You could develop esophageal cancer. You could get those varices. You could have bleeding in your esophagus. And when that happens, when they have to remove parts of your esophagus, you know what that means? You can't eat through your mouth. You can't talk through your mouth either. But people drink themselves to death. Their liver will be on life support. They don't care. They'll need a liver transplant. Won't care. I've handled many cases with people who have alcoholic liver cirrhosis. Their liver is literally hardening and dying because of the amount of alcohol they have consumed in their lifetime, and they refuse to stop drinking. The liver can be repaired. The liver can be repaired. The thing about human organs, some of them, is that they can be repaired. Some of them cannot, and you'll need a transplant. The liver is one of those, can go either way. It could repair itself, but it could also just die, and you could need another one. You could need a whole liver, or you could need a piece of a liver. You could have a kidney removed and live with just one kidney, or you could need a kidney transplant because you are in that bad a shape. You could have your pancreas, your spleen, gallbladder. All of these things are affected. It's not just, oh, I got a little bit of, I got the sugars, or I got it's my blood pressure is just a little bit high. It's called end organ damage is what happens when these diseases affect your organs to the point that your organs have to be removed or transplanted. And this happens with substances, with substance abuse. Heart disease, kidney disease, liver, brain disease. People get mouth cancer from chewing tobacco and smoking cigarettes. There are people who have asthma, who have COPD, who have emphysema, who are on daily oxygen, still smoking. And I know it's an addiction. You could be addicted to alcohol. You could be addicted to food. Yes, absolutely. Be addicted to sugar. Your brain can get addicted to anything. You can even be addicted to another human being. It's called codependency. I did a whole episode on it. So the top list changes, obviously, when you break down age categories. For instance, for Black males, for Black men, ages. I just hate saying the words Black male because it sounds like blackmail. But for Black men, ages 20 to 24. The leading causes of death in the United States, this, again, non-Hispanic Black males, leading causes of death, ages 20 to 24. Homicide. The number one killer of Black men, ages 20 to 24, is homicide. Homicide. Then accidents. Then suicide. then heart disease, cancer, diabetes, chronic respiratory diseases, and HIV. Homicide. Homicide, accidents, and suicide are the top 3 killers of non-Hispanic Black males ages 20 to 24. They're being murdered at a rate so high, it is the number 1 killer of men their ages. Lord above. And the same for men ages 25 to 34. Leading cause, homicide, then accidents, suicide, heart disease, cancer, HIV, diabetes, and cerebrovascular diseases. For men ages 35 to 44, the leading cause of death, this is going to surprise you, is accidents. Accidents. Unintentional injuries, accidents. Then heart disease, then homicide, neoplasms, malignant neoplasms, then suicide, then diabetes mellitus, then HIV, and lastly, hypertension. Notice as the ages go up, the cause of death of suicide decreases. It is young men, young Black men primarily, who are killing themselves intentionally. They are dying by suicide, death by suicide. Let's talk about that. We'll talk about that later. Men ages 45 to 54, the leading cause is heart disease, right? The older you get, the leading cause of death becomes the one thing that you have probably ignored in your younger years. Heart disease, then accidents, cancer, malignant neoplasms, diabetes mellitus, cerebrovascular diseases, and lastly, homicide is on the top list for men ages 45 to 54. This makes me a little bit sad because not even a little bit, a lot. This is disheartening. This is upsetting. This is some of the leading causes of death of Black men from ages 20 to 54 is homicide. Homicide. Who's killing Black men? That's what you should be talking about. And no, it is not just the police. It's not just law enforcement. No. I mean, they do enough of it, certainly. And they do a lot of getting away with it. But it's not just law enforcement. No, it's not. That's what you need to explore. That's what you all need to be talking about. Need to be talking about what's killing Black men. And you need to be really honest with yourselves about what it is. It's not just the thing that you can see on the social media video. It's not the police with their foot on your necks. It is you all ignoring your health. It is you all picking up guns and deciding that you're going to use them against each other. It is people picking up guns and deciding they're going to use them against you. It is men who are so depressed, so despondent. Maybe they're delusional. And they decided they want to end their lives completely. But then it is the preventable illnesses too. Heart disease, cerebrovascular diseases. HIV, which for some reason, Black men are dying from HIV/AIDS. A disease that is controllable. It's controllable. It's controllable. You could live for decades with HIV before it ever becomes AIDS. So why are Black men still dying from this disease? Why are Black men dying from preventable illnesses, from illnesses that can be managed with medication and doctor visits, checkups? Why are Black men dying from these things? Chronic respiratory diseases? Should not be dying from chronic respiratory diseases. Why? Because they are easily managed. They even have, they even sell medicine. They sell asthma medication now over the counter. Asthma medication is readily available. You could get a vaccine, like I said, for the flu, for influenza, all types of influenza. You could get a vaccine for pneumonia. Get it twice in your life and you're good. And I know COVID causes respiratory illnesses. And you all have already said how you feel about the COVID vaccine. You think it's poison. You think the government is engaging in population control of Black people by injecting them with, I don't even know how COVID vaccine would be killing Black people at record numbers to the point that it would be considered population control. But this is one of your foolish, idiotic conspiracies. Maybe it won't prevent you from getting it, but guess what? You will increase your chances of surviving it. And why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to do that? No one is trying to kill you with medicine. But you sure as hell would try to kill yourself with food. I've seen some of the food that you people eat. You seen a man eat? Good Lord have mercy. A plate full of carbs. And I know a few guys who take very good care of themselves. They're health conscious. They eat clean. They eat well. They go to the gym and they're lifting and running and prancing and dancing. And they're working out. But guess what? Guess what? You could work out and still die from a heart attack. You could still have a heart attack. Being buff and being lean doesn't mean anything if you don't know what is going on inside of your body. Your blood has to be tested. Your breathing has to be tested. Maybe you have a lump somewhere that needs to be tested. You could still develop cancer. If you're a healthy person, you could develop diabetes as a healthy, slender, slim person. You could develop hypertension. You could develop high cholesterol. And you know what happens with high cholesterol? High cholesterol causes liver cirrhosis as well. Yeah. Fatty liver disease from high cholesterol causes liver cirrhosis. And when your liver dies, either you get a new one or you die. So yeah, you could be slender and trim and running marathons. I just read a story about a guy who lost over 100 pounds in 2 years through bariatric surgery. He had to lose weight first for the surgery. And then he got the surgery. He started eating better. Eating within the bounds of the surgery. They make your stomach so small that you could only eat a little bit of food. Started running marathons. He's running every day. Running all the time. But guess what? He still has to go to the doctor because even though he lost all that weight and he slimmed down, because he had developed diabetes and hypertension before, he still has to get checked to make sure those things aren't coming back, to make sure those things are going away, to make sure he's taking care of himself. You don't get to check out just because you're exercising. You don't get to check out on yourself just because you're exercising. You don't get to just fall back on your health because you're skinny, you're eating well, because you got some muscles, because you're lean. You don't get to check out on yourself. You still have to get these checkups. You could be as healthy as a racehorse who's about to run in the Kentucky Derby, and you could develop something unseen, unfelt, and be dead within 6 months. You don't get to check out on yourself because you were doing all of the right things. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do the right thing. But then you could still die from a homicide, according to these statistics. So how are you protecting yourself from that? There's so many things to think about that I understand it could be overwhelming. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to know about it. You want to be in ignorance is bliss land. But you have to think about it. You have to get it under control. You have to think about it. You all have to start talking about it. Black men have to start talking about this because we know whatever people are talking about in the majority with strong voices is what brings action on the part of government organizations, healthcare organizations, nonprofit organizations. They listen to what the people are talking about, what the people are saying. And if you all aren't talking about your health, you're not going to see the studies done. You're not going to see the focus on Black men's health. And that is exactly what is happening. There is a dearth, very small amount of research on the health challenges of Black men. The research isn't there because Black men aren't talking about their health challenges enough for anybody to give a fuck. You all aren't focusing on your health. You're not having conversations around your health challenges, around health screenings, health exams, about doctors and specialists and pills and etc. You all aren't talking about this enough for it to be something that someone wants to study and find out why it is happening to you and what to do about it. Like I said, women, we talk about our shit all the time. We talk about our health stuff all the time. Every time I talk to my friends, that's what we talk about. We talk about everything. But not only that, we go to the doctor. We visit our doctors. We get our woman visits. We get the mammograms. We get the pap tests. When something feels a little off, something feels a little weird, we're into the doctor to see about it. Women don't wait. Women do not wait. And you know why? Because women want to be alive to take care of the people in our lives. Not just, I wish we thought of ourselves more when it came to this kind of thing, but we're thinking about other people more than ourselves when we do this. Oh, I got to be healthy for the kids. I got to be healthy for my husband. I got to be healthy for my wife. I got to be healthy. I got to be healthy for my partner. I got to be healthy because people at my job are depending on me, and I got to be my best. But again, as with women, as with men, focus on yourself. Be healthy for yourself. According to the Center for Health of Minority Males and the CDC, there are approximately 21 million Black men in the United States. Approximately 21 million. Black men suffer far worse health than any other racial group in America. There are a number of reasons for this, including racial discrimination, a lack of affordable health services, poor health education, cultural barriers, poverty, employment that does not carry health insurance, and insufficient medical and social services catering for Black men. Black men have higher death rates than women for all leading causes of death. 23% of Black men 18 years of age and over smoke cigarettes. 40% of Black men 20 years of age and over have hypertension. 40% of Black men die prematurely from heart disease as compared to 21% of white men. 40% of Black men 20 years of age and over have hypertension. 38% of Black men 20 years of age and over are obese. Black men live 7.1 years less than other racial groups. Black men live 7.1 years less than other racial groups. So are we addressing the cause of death of Black males ages 20 to 34, which is homicide? Are we addressing the second leading cause of death, accidents? Are we addressing the leading cause of death of Black males ages 25 to 34, which is homicide? Are we addressing why Black men ages 20 to 34 are committing suicide? Are we talking about what's leading to the suicide of Black men in America? And yes, we know that racism in the U.S. affects the physical health of Black people, Black men specifically. So Black men not seeking doctor's care for several reasons. Black men are not seeking a doctor's care for several reasons. They do not have a family doctor. They don't have a general practitioner, and if they do, they are not scheduling physical exams. Many use the emergency room of a hospital as their personal doctor, only going when the pain in whatever region is unbearable or they're coughing up blood. And if they're seeing a doctor, maybe they're not seeing specialist or requesting specialist care, or their doctor is not listening to their pain complaints or providing them with referrals. We know that racism affects access to health care and well-paying jobs and access to health insurance. If you live in an economically depressed area, there may be low-cost or free health clinics. Planned Parenthood is one of them. Yeah, Planned Parenthood is not just for women. It's not just for birth control. They actually do health screenings. They do physical exams for men and women. But places like Planned Parenthood and free clinics, they only provide basic care, routine exams. They can only give you certain formularies on prescriptions when you might need a higher formulary. You might need something different. You might be used to taking something different and suddenly you were without a job and you have to go to the free clinic and they can only give you maybe Prozac when you need Effexor. They can't give you an antipsychotic. They can only give you Wellbutrin or whatever. These are just examples. If you need greater treatment, you probably have to enter treatment with a big hospital machine. In Cleveland, there are two, the Cleveland Clinic and university hospitals. And then the cost of your care rises by hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not low cost. It's not free. Even when you have health insurance, you still are going to pay something up front. There's a copay for even an ambulance ride. There are people who will take an Uber to the hospital. There are people who will walk to the hospital because they don't want to take an ambulance because it costs money. But the pushback against certain medications like vaccines, while I get that there is the historical mistreatment of Black people for medical experiments and eugenics and forced sterilization and etc., There's also a lot of ignorance associated with medical treatment. How in the heck do we expect Black men to believe a vaccine will help them when most do not even have the guts to let a doctor touch them in there? You know what? Because that's gay. You ever had a prostate exam? You ever had your doctor have to look at your penis? Ooh, that's gay. Ooh, it's gay. Or let a woman do it. Ooh, I don't want a woman touching me there. That's embarrassing. The worst thing I probably have heard a man say about his health is that he can just thug it out. Thug it out means you're just going to sleep off the pain. You're just going to maybe take some aspirin. You're not going to see a doctor. You're not going to go to the hospital. It has to be something so severe because men don't go to the hospital, right? That's a woman's thing. When did gender roles get injected into this? How is going to get treatment that could save your life a woman thing? It's the silliness. It's the silliness that I continue to hear all the time from men about their health. You all are dying and you're making jokes. You all are dying and acting silly and foolish. You're not taking your medicine. You're not going to see the doctor like you're supposed to. You're not getting your medicine refilled. And if you don't have health insurance, if you don't have health coverage, you're not seeking out resources to help with that. And I know that there are barriers. I'm going to talk about the barriers. So, did I mention that I am a disability lawyer? Yes, I am. That is my chosen area of law. I love it. Love it. It's so exciting. That's sarcasm. But if I'm sitting here talking to you about health and about diseases and about health care, I know from which I speak. I've been doing this for 16 years. I've seen so much. Black men dying from preventable illnesses or Black men suffering needlessly. Before the Affordable Health Care Act was passed, it was difficult for poor people, low-income people, people who didn't have health insurance, to have access to health care. Once the Affordable Care Act passed, let me tell you, it was like night and frickin' day. People were getting insurance, and I know there are still gaps. There are still people who are unable to, but they make too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but that there are states that could expand Medicaid if they wanted to, but they don't want to because it's going to cost somebody money. But I've seen it. Hypertension, strokes, heart attacks, heart diseases, diabetes, and hypertension overwhelmingly are two of the diseases that I see a lot. And I'm talking about thousands of people. Diabetes, hypertension. And then there's joint pains and whatever, back pain, joint pain, osteoarthritis. But overwhelmingly, it's brain diseases, heart diseases, hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease. And not even type 1 diabetes. It's type 2 diabetes that I'm seeing more than any other. More than type 1. It's type 2. And these people, and, obesity plays a role in that. Absolutely. There are people, with BMIs over 30, over 40, over 50. And doctors are telling them, hey, if you want to feel better, if you want to get off some of these medications, if you want to get your diet under control, if you want to have better blood glucose numbers, if you want to get out of pre-diabetes, if you want to get out of diabetes, lose weight. And it's not as easy as just losing weight. It's hard, believe me. I do it myself. It is so hard to convince your brain to stop eating the way that you've been eating. There's a lot of things in food that cause inflammation. And so once you break out of eating those foods that have those ingredients in them that cause inflammation, you feel so much better. In the US, we see the cost of racism daily, but the additional cost is health disparities. The life expectancy of Black men and white men should be the same. Why do they get to live 7.1 years longer than Black men? Why do they get to do that? That's something to think about. That's something to talk about. That's something to explore. That should be very upsetting. You should be upset with that. And according to the CDC, racism, both structural and interpersonal, are fundamental causes of health inequities, health disparities, and disease. The impact of these inequities on the health of Americans is severe, far-reaching, and unacceptable. Across the country, racial and ethnic minority populations experience higher rates of poor health and disease in a range of health conditions, including diabetes, hypertension, obesity, asthma, and heart disease, when compared to their white counterparts. The life expectancy among Black African Americans is 4 years lower than that of white Americans. But there may be something influential, something powerful, something else at play here. In the pertinent study titled Masculinity and Race-Related Factors as Barriers to Health Help Seeking Among African American Men, the authors conducted a study identifying health help seeking barriers in the Black male community, noting that, quote, the potential negative impacts associated with delayed male health help seeking are likely even more pronounced for African American men who, despite narrowing Black-white life expectancy gaps, live shorter lives than non-Hispanic white women, African American women, and non-Hispanic white men. African American men's death rates from heart disease, some cancers, and other health conditions amenable to preventative interventions are also significantly higher than those experienced by non-Hispanic white men. While these disparaging African American male health outcomes are not solely attributable to help-seeking delays, they are less likely to manifest when the conditions driving them are detected and treated early. Indeed, multiple extant studies affirm that women from most racial and ethnic groups and non-Hispanic white men are significantly more likely to seek help for health problems than African American men. You see, women and white men are seeking help more than Black men. Even in light of this compelling evidence, studies investigating barriers to African American men's health help seeking are scarce, and most of what we know at the population level stems from studies focused on psychological services use. And this is something that I found when researching this topic, is that most of the research on Black men's health challenges surrounds their mental health, their psychological studies, as if you could isolate the Black man's brain from the rest of his body, as if you could only study the brain and not the environment that's causing the psychological and mental pain to begin with, but also some of the physical ailments that are leading to mental changes that cause depression and anxiety and ADHD. Yeah, there are physical diseases that can cause mental disorders. But the study is only on the brain. The study is only on the mental, the psychological, the psyche not even the brain, but what's stored, what's downloaded into the brain. Reducing barriers to help seeking among African American men requires a broader health focus and specific attention to the unique factors driving delays among this group. Men are not biologically hardwired to delay help seeking. Rather, barriers to men's health help seeking are socially determined. Individuals are more likely to resist help seeking when they confront life events that diminish sense of self-control. Sense of control, rather. Barriers to men's health help seeking are socially determined. Individuals are more likely to resist help seeking when they confront life events that diminish sense of control, threaten freedom, and induce negative psychological states. Reactance theory is rooted in the assumption that salient aspects of identity shape the evaluation and appraisal of potentially threatening events. Such threatening events hypothetically lead individuals to engage in activities designed to reclaim identity and restore personal sense of control. Health behaviors, including help seeking, are generally shaped by the sense of control. Masculinity norms or shared cultural expectations about male behavior have a profound influence on men's identities and help-seeking delays. So, emasculation? Well, there you have it. There are these gender norms that we believe, or Black men believe, they have to fit into, that are influencing the men's identities and help-seeking delays. What you think you have to be is a barrier to your health help seeking. So if anything, I would say to Sheena Arnold, we don't have to do anything about emasculation. We have to do something about getting our Black men to the fucking doctor. As a multidimensional set of social prescriptions, masculinity norms theoretically encourage men to avoid help seeking, display emotional stoicism or toughness, cope autonomously, and maintain a high sense of control even in the face of negative life experiences. The researchers found, for instance, that men with higher adherence to the norms of maleness experience help seeking as threatening to their masculine identity. Again, I ask you, what is the use of the male identity you think we're supposed to protect and that you are supposed to adopt that would be helpful to you? Men with higher adherence to the norms of maleness experience help seeking as threatening to their masculine identity. Additionally, men who experience more everyday racism report more barriers to health care because the healthcare system diminishes their sense of control. In contrast, strong racial identity has a positive impact upon help-seeking behaviors because having a strong sense of self increases one's sense of control and decreases feelings of depression. So a strong racial identity leads to positive outcomes in health help-seeking. The study suggests that help-seeking resistance for African American men may not simply be about demonstrating masculinity, the author said. Our results also imply that help-seeking barriers in African American men are triggered not just by healthcare access or costs, but by everyday experiences such as racial profiling that chip away at psychological well-being. These barriers keep Black men from health help seeking, from finding providers, from accessing health insurance, from improving their treatment regimen. Now, I'm going to put the title of that study with the authors at the end of the podcast. It was a multi-author study, and the lead was a Black woman doctor. And one of the points that they made was about the lack of science studying the barriers to treatment for Black men, and the lack of science for Black men's health struggles. And so they wanted to know what was going on. What is leading to this? And they did this study and they found out. You guys should read it. Why are you not studying the health challenges of Black men? White people, yes, you could conduct a study. Doctors, sociologists, conduct a study. Conduct studies. If you want to do your dissertation on this, if you're in grad school, you want to make this your dissertation, please. But mostly, Black men need to start talking about this. They need to start pushing back. They need to start pushing back and exploring health challenges for Black men in the Black American community. And we know, of course, I mentioned it before, that Black men not receiving and not seeking proper health care for themselves covers their mental health as well. The suicide rate for young Black men is staggering. It's staggering. So in the top 10 of causes of death for young Black men. In the article, Black Masculinity and Mental Health, What Black Men Should Consider About Their Emotional and Mental Wellness, by Maya Nigel Hoskins, a Forbes magazine published on April 1st, 2022, the author notes that Black men are not only affected by the general barriers to medical treatment that many in the Black community face, but who also have internalized certain behaviors that fit within the social constructs of Black masculinity, ultimately impacting their help-seeking behaviors. Again, reinforced. Black men are not only affected by the general barriers to medical treatment that many in the Black community face, but who also have internalized certain behaviors that fit within the social constructs of Black masculinity, ultimately impacting their help-seeking behaviors. These roles that you think Black men should be playing, that Black men think they should be playing, that Black women think they should be playing, they're barriers to your help seeking, because it's not seen as masculine to be going to the doctor. Despite known or suspected mental health issues, Black men are, for numerous reasons, often reluctant to seek treatment. Young Black adults are increasingly suffering from major depressive disorder and yet less likely to seek treatment for it than their white counterparts. Sadness, hopelessness, and worthlessness are pervasive, and the barriers to treatment, systemic, physical, economic, combine to keep Black men from seeking or even believing they need help for what they're feeling. And no, it's not a matter of just get therapy, because if you have major depressive disorder, if you have generalized anxiety disorder, if you have ADHD, you need a psychotropic. You need an SSRI. You might even need a tricyclic. It's not just about therapy. Therapy is only a part of it. Therapists are not doctors. They cannot prescribe medication. You need a doctor. Can either get a psychiatrist, or you can get a nurse practitioner, or even your general practitioner can prescribe you medication. But a general practitioner will push you to see a psychiatrist, which you should absolutely do. If you need mental health medications, you should be managed by a psychiatrist, and you should also be seeking therapy, because your psychiatrist is not your therapist. They're not going to talk to you for an hour or an hour and a half about how you're feeling and why you're feeling this and give you the tools needed to get out of what you're into. It's not their job. Their job is to manage your medication, to make sure it's working, to explore side effects, to find out what's going on in your life. Maybe they need to adjust your medicine. Their job is to figure out if you're improving. Their job is medicine. You need someone who's going to talk to you, someone you can talk to. And let me tell you, there are so many therapists and so many ways to obtain therapy now that there is the only excuse that I could think of would be if someone did not have money to pay for it, because it's not free. It's not free and it ain't cheap. But these illnesses, they require medication. You can't just see a therapist. But have you ever suggested to a Black man that he needs to see a psychiatrist? Lordy. Woo. You may as well tell him that his dick is trash. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts them to hear you need to see a psychiatrist. It's like an indictment. They make it feel like it's an indictment against them. I ain't crazy. You're the one who crazy. No. Seeing a psychiatrist does not mean that you're crazy. But when you have a major depressive episode and you're not getting out of bed, you're not brushing your teeth, you're not bathing, when you feel like you're in a dark hole and you want to die, your brain, there's something imbalanced in your brain and it needs to be corrected. You need to be lifted up out of the darkness. Doesn't mean you're crazy. Crazy is relative anyway, because we're all a little bit of crazy. We're all a little unhinged. We all do a little something that doesn't make sense. We're all a bit of loop-de-loo, right? Weird, eccentric. And it's not gay. It's not weak. It doesn't emasculate you to tell you to make an appointment to see a psychiatrist, to get your bipolar disorder under control, to get your ADHD under control, to address your PTSD. Maybe you were in a car accident, you had a traumatic brain injury, and suddenly you have developed a neurocognitive disorder where you're experiencing memory loss. You're having trouble reading, you're having trouble pronouncing words. There's something that's not right. There's something going on, and you need to see a mental health specialist. How about that? Does that sound better? Does that sound better than saying psychiatrist? A mental health specialist. Doesn't matter what you call it. Getting to it is the important thing, not what it's called. Forget what it's called. Forget the purpose. Know when people think about psychiatrists, they think about having the couch and you go lay down on the couch and they shrink you. God. Oh, goodness gracious. Ignore the stigma. Ignore the whatever people are going to say. Ignore what people are going to say. If you're going to see a psychiatrist, the only thing people should say is, I'm with you, man. I got you. Good looking out. Good. Good for you. People who laugh at you, people who make fun of you, those are not your people. And you don't need to be around the motherfuckers, okay? Because people who care about you genuinely, people who love you genuinely, would applaud you, not make fun of you, not belittle you, not tear you down. Not go, oh, it was about time. Not make you feel some kind of way because you need this help. Not make you feel bad because you're crying, because you're hurt, because you needed to reach out to someone. People who make you feel bad because you're feeling bad, fuck them. Separate yourself from them. They don't want what's best for you. They're not in your life to help you. They're not in your life to uplift you. They're tearing you down. They're contributing. Listen, they are contributing to your poor mental health. Yes, the people around you can do that. And when those people are around you, you need to erect barriers. This is when good barriers come in. You need to erect barriers to protect yourself from them. You're not going to get better. Do you think an alcoholic gets better in the setting of a place where alcohol is being served all around them every day? Do you think a drug addict can get better, can kick drugs if they're living in a setting of drug use? No, they're going to relapse. The urges are going to be there. The urges are going to be so strong. Why would you do that to yourself? Do you think someone who has mental health problems is going to feel better, improve, get better in a setting where people are belittling them, emotionally abusing them, verbally abusing them, physically abusing them? No. You're not going to get better if you're linked up with a narcissist either. You're not going to get better if you are not in a setting of wellness. If you are not in a supportive setting, you are not going to get better. You are going to struggle wildly to get better. And it's not until you remove yourself from that toxic environment, these people who are not there to help you, that you are going to improve and start to build the life for yourself that you know that you deserve. But Black men have internalized stereotypes, battle class divisions, and contemporary ideas that paint Black men as pathological, violent, and prone to deviant behavior. Black men have to be strong, right? Because we have painted them into that corner. We can only have strong Black families if there are strong Black men and strong Black women. But what is strong? What is strength? And I'm not talking about machismo. I'm not talking about brooding. I'm not talking about being overbearing. I'm not talking about, the James Evans who was always yelling at at JJ. No, that's not strong. I'm talking about wellness. I am talking about wellness. There is strength in wellness. There is strength in mental and physical wellness. That strength is what I'm talking about. Because you can be a powerful figure in your family, but if your blood is type ragu, you're not going to live long enough to see what that family can do. You're not going to live long enough to see the legacy. You're not going to live long enough to see your children graduate from college. There is strength in wellness, and that is what Black men need to focus on. But the author Maya Haskin that I mentioned earlier, she says researchers who examine how Black masculinity and norms affect help-seeking behavior among Black men have found negative outcomes. In a study of Black men who were experiencing mental health challenges, notions about Black masculinity both exacerbated psychological and emotional challenges such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and prevented the men from seeking help to address those challenges. Woo-hoo! Ding, 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 ding. Here we are again. Those stupid ass gender norms imposed on Black men, keeping them from achieving mental wellness, keeping them from achieving help, from getting help for their anxiety, their PTSD, their depression. Black researchers who, let me repeat this, Researchers who examine how Black masculinity and norms affect help-seeking behavior among Black men have found negative outcomes. In a study of Black men who were experiencing mental health challenges, notions about Black masculinity both exacerbated psychological and emotional challenges such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and prevented the men from seeking help to address those challenges. While Black men are praised for their physical strength, their physical weaknesses, their mental health weaknesses are swept under the rug. The NFL and CTE comes to mind when I think about this. Research is showing that college football players are likely to develop CTE and other brain disorders in the years off the field. Now, this is just college. This is not even in the NFL. They're developing the brain diseases in the years off the field. Now, how do you think people look at players, football players or baseball or basketball players after they've left the general population of basketball, football, baseball playing, of soccer? You're not thought about, especially if you played college and went into career. You didn't go into pro sports after that. You're not really thought about. If you have health challenges from your years of playing, like some kids start playing football at age 4 or 5, they're doing the flag football. Duh, Ayana, flag football. And then they start in the Pee Wee leagues, the Pop Warner leagues, very early age. And they go through 10, 12 more years of playing, 13, 15 more years of playing after that. As soon as they stop playing, what happens? They're developing brain disorders. Again, brain diseases are one of the leading causes of death in young Black men. So while you're sitting where you're sitting, waiting for someone to masculate you because you've been emasculated, you're going to wait forever for someone else to validate you, to show you your importance to the world. My suggestion to you, to Black men, don't wait for us. Don't wait for us. We're not going to do it. You have to do this yourselves. Just like Black women have to do it ourselves, you have to do it yourself. I know, it sucks. It really does. We should all be working together. It should be all of us, uplifting all of us, but we're not fucking doing it. And as much as we see it and write it and say it, we say it more than we do it. I'm taking care of my Black man. The Black man in my household, my son, my 17-year-old son, I'm taking care of mine. I'm uplifting him. I'm showing him how to take care of himself. He takes good care of himself. Got him eating the right foods, although he works at a pizza shop, so that's kind of hard. But he's athletic. He's working out. He sees me working out. He sees me eating right. I take him to the doctor. He gets all his checkups. When he needs something else, I take him to get that. He gets all his shots. We talk about health and wellness. We talk about mental health and wellness, emotional health and wellness. This is actually where it starts for Black men. It starts in their home. Remember, the parents are the first teachers. It's not starting outside of the home. It's starting inside of the home. So if you're waiting for someone to prop you up so that you can feel better, do it for your fucking self. Do it for your children. Do it for yourself. Don't wait for anybody. You could wait for the rest of your life for someone to validate you, for someone to make you feel good. You could wait for the rest of your life. But why would you? Why should you? The help you're looking for is the help you need to be seeking. And we've talked about the barriers. And one of the barriers are these gender roles and gender norms that are stereotypes for the black man to have to fit into. That's one of the barriers. So why are you seeking those? Don't seek that. Don't seek that out. That's contributing to your depression, to your anxiety. Having to be the provider. You think that doesn't make a motherfucker anxious? You think that doesn't eat away at his stomach and help him develop an ulcer? You think that doesn't make him sweat? That he has to be strong, he has to be the provider, he has to be athletic, he has to do all the things, he has to be the mechanic, he has to be the protection, he has to be the one with the gun. I mean, just all of these things, my God. Can he live? Can he live? They just want to live. They need to live. And these stereotypes, these things that you all want black men to be, because someone told you that they had to be something other than what they are supposed to be, and that is productive members of society. Black men don't have to be anything extra because they're black. But we have told them that they have to be something more, something extra. They have to be remarkable. They have to be outstanding. They have to fucking glow in the dark. No, 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 no. And when you strip back all of that, you can finally relax. When you can finally just be the person you're supposed to be. You take on responsibilities, take care of your responsibilities. You don't have to do anything extra because you're a black man. You just have to do the regular shit. Take care of your kids, take care of your household, take care of yourself. Keep your peoples out of jail, keep yourself out of jail. Stay off drugs. Don't abuse alcohol. Be a good neighbor, be a good dad, be a good husband, be a good boyfriend, be a good person. You don't have to be an extra good person because you're black. You don't have to be an extra good dad because you're black. You don't have to be an extra exceptional husband because you're a black husband. You're still a man. Nobody can take that away from you. Do you know that? Nobody can take that away from you. Now, without your permission. You're not slaves anymore. Nobody can take this away from you without your permission. But what you really need to be focused on is what you're losing because you're thinking about the wrong things. You're losing each other. You're losing yourselves because you're focused on the wrong things. I don't give a fuck what people on Twitter are talking about half the time. I go there to laugh, but I also go there to observe people and what people are talking about. And you all aren't talking about the right things. You're just not. On social media, you're not talking about the right things. Out there in public, I'm not hearing these conversations. I've sat in on some conversations at barbershops. I'm not hearing these conversations about your health, about healthcare challenges, about health challenges, about health barriers. I'm not hearing this. What are you talking about? What you're talking about shows what you care about. What you talk about the most shows what you care about. You are important. Not just to society, but to yourself. Encourage the men in your community and circle of friends to get routine screenings, please. Talk to your sons about this. Talk to your parents about this. Look in the mirror and talk to yourself. Do not do yourself a disservice by neglecting your physical health or your mental health. Men should discuss openly the examinations they have or should be having. They should be talking about resources for them, for their friends, for their families, to get low-cost health care if they need it. Talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more people will want to know what's going on with it. The more studies that will be conducted about this. They're not going to put money into things that people don't give a fuck about. They just aren't. The stories have to be out there. The stories have to be in the streets for them to care. It sucks, but that's the way it is. That's how it was with Black maternal health. Suddenly the government studying it and going, oh, well, it's an epidemic now. Yeah, because for the longest time, nobody was paying attention. Nobody was paying attention. It wasn't being studied. People weren't paying attention. Why did they start paying attention? Because more Black women were vocal about the struggles they were having while they were pregnant. More Black women started talking about the struggles they were having while they were pregnant. More stories came out. And yeah, some celebrities were telling their stories too. But more people started talking about it. Articles were being written about it. People were talking about it on social media. And here it is now. It's being studied. Money's being poured into it. Medicaid is expanding its services to offer women postpartum care of up to a year. That's unheard of. Medicaid doesn't expand anything. That's unheard of. So if Medicaid is expanding because of all these studies, imagine what they could do for Black men and Black men's health care and Black men's health care challenges. Engage in studies that focus on the health challenges of Black men. Insist these studies happen. Insist that more Black men discuss their health challenges openly and share information among yourselves. You may be able to help someone who is ailing, who needs the resources. Shift the focus and the conversations from tomfoolery, including sports, please, to your health, your physical health, mental health, emotional health. How are you doing, feeling, thinking? How are you sleeping? A lot of people develop disorders because they're not sleeping well, and sometimes you're not sleeping well is the sign, the symptom of a disorder. What if, when you went to the gym or the barber shop, there were medical professionals there to do health checks? What if getting a health check was as easy as going to your local pharmacy or help organizations such as the Salvation Army, the City Mission, the Community Center? Black men dying from heart attacks in their 40s is abnormal because it is not happening to any other race at the rate it happens to Black men. It is abnormal. It needs to change. There is strength and prosperity in wellness. Engage with organizations focused on Black men's health. Engage resources in your community that offer health screenings, low-cost medical treatment and prescriptions. And again, if you have health insurance, use it. If you have a primary care doctor who is not listening to your pain complaints, who is not listening to your complaints about the side effects of your medication, who is not allowing you to change your medication, then change your doctor. Doctors work for us. Okay? Yeah, they know more about medicine and science and the human body than us, but they don't know more about your body than you do. You know your body. You know when there's something is wrong. You know when you need something more. Voice it. Voice it. Voice it to your doctor. Insist, and this is especially for Black people who are not listened to for some reason when it comes to healthcare providers. Insist that you see a specialist for the particular thing that is wrong with you. There are kidney specialists. There are blood specialists. There are geneticists. There are neurologists. There are cardiologists, dermatologists, osteopaths. There are foot doctors. There are liver specialists, gastroenterologists. Insist that you be evaluated by a specialist. Insist. And insist that your doctor run a full blood panel, a full test of the vitamins that should be prevalent in your body. Test your thyroid, test your liver, test your cholesterol. Insist that you be treated well, that you be treated properly by your doctor. And if you don't like the way your doctor is treating you, get another one. And yes, I know it is not that easy for everyone. But if you don't insist that you be treated better, then you won't be. That's how it is for Blacks in America. If you don't insist that you're treated better, then you won't be treated better. They're not just going to treat us better. They're not going to do it. We've seen it. They don't do it. But Black people, Black men especially, have agency. You can fix yourselves. You can fix yourselves. In fact, I insist that you do it. I insist that you do it. And this has been Ayana Explains It All, brought to you by facts, figures, and much enlightenment. See you next week, inshallah. The following resources were used in the making of this episode of Ayana Explains It All. The article, Black Masculinity and Mental Health, What Black Men Should Consider About Their Emotional and Mental Wellness, by Maya Nigel Hoskin, published on April 1st, 2022 in Forbes magazine. Powell Wisdom et al., the article, The Study, Masculinity and Race-Related Factors as Barriers to Health Help Seeking Among African American Men, published in Behavioral Medicine, out of Washington, D.C., Volume 42-3, in the year 2016, pages 150 through 63, and the CDC.gov. Thank you.